Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. This weekend marks the one-year anniversary of the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. The president recorded an interview with his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, that will air on the Fox News channel Saturday night, in which he reflects on what happened by saying that the Secret Service had a bad day. We have some excerpts from the interview. Things are getting messy personally for Texas AG Ken Paxton, as his wife, who's a state senator in Texas, Senator Angela Paxton, announced yesterday she's filing for divorce from her husband, citing biblical grounds and a desire to protect her family in light of recent discoveries. We have that story as well. And border security was a big winner when Congress passed the big, beautiful bill, which authorized about $150 billion in new spending, with some of that aimed to hire more agents. But can they? In Politico Nightly, they suggest because of retirements, we'll still have fewer agents than before. We have that story too. Welcome. It is Friday. Yes, Friday. I heard from you yesterday. I received some texts and emails that I was wrong on the day. Yes, I went back and I listened, and I did say Wednesday. Yesterday was Thursday. But it was actually, it was Thursday. But today is Friday. I got it right this time. So thank you for spending some time with me today. Thank you who were paying attention yesterday, and you kept me straight.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's jump right in. A lot has happened over the past year in American politics. But if there's one moment that shook the entire nation, and I mean shook us, it was what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th, 2024. It's the kind of moment that leaves a scar on the country, and for President Donald Trump, it left one literally on his ear. A would-be assassin's bullet came within a quarter inch of taking his life, 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch. Think about that. That's about the width of a pencil eraser, maybe less. Now, nearly a year later, President Trump is speaking about it. And what he's saying is equal parts shocking, sobering, and, if I'm honest, a little surprising. The president sat down with his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, on her Fox News show, My View, which airs Saturday night. The conversation is it's just natural between a father-in-law and his daughter-in-law. This isn't the kind of canned response that we've seen in the past from politicians who've gone through something traumatic. It's Trump being Trump. Brash, direct, but a little introspective as well. Telling his daughter-in-law it was unforgettable.
They should have had somebody in the building. That was a mistake. They should have had communications with the local police. They weren't tied in. And they should have been tied in. So there were mistakes made. And that shouldn't have happened. And that building was a prime building in terms of what they were trying to do. So, but I was satisfied in terms of the bigger plot, the larger plot.
He explained that when things happen, it happened so quickly that he didn't know exactly what was going on. He said, I got whacked. There's no question about that. And unfortunately, I got down quickly, he said. And he's not wrong. The footage from that day shows that Trump clutched his ear quickly, blood pouring down his cheek right before Secret Service agents swarmed him and rushed him off stage. The crowd, God bless them, they were confused, panicked, and then someone started yelling, fight, fight, fight. That someone, Trump himself, still standing despite being shot, rallying his people, getting that fist in the air, which became an iconic moment and could have been a turning point in last year's election. But behind all of that is a serious reckoning, especially when it comes to the Secret Service, the men and women who are trained to take a bullet to protect the commander-in-chief. Trump had praise, yes. He even singled out the counter-sniper who neutralized the gunman, a guy named David, he said. He said he did a fantastic job. He went about his business less than 4 seconds, and that's when it all stopped. He got the shooter perfectly from a very long distance. Now, let's talk about that shooter for a second. Thomas Crooks, he was 20 years old. He wasn't some overseas terrorist. He was a local kid with a dark plan. He climbed up on that rooftop near the rally, and he waited. He just waited. He was patient, like a trained sniper almost, but he wasn't. When he saw his shot, he took it, 8 bullets. One of them grazed Trump's ear. Another killed a former volunteer firefighter, Corey Compatore. 2 other people were wounded. So where was the security detail? That's the big question. Turns out the Secret Service had no personnel in the building Crooks fired from. 0. Local police had not been looped into security briefings, according to Trump. The communication was just broken, he said. He said they should have had somebody in that building. That was a mistake. Yes, it was a mistake, Mr. President. He's not wrong. And he's not alone in thinking this. A Senate report released earlier this year just flat out said that the Secret Service had failed. Operational breakdowns is how they put it. Operational breakdowns. Some fancy words for something that nearly ended a presidency and a life, a former president's life at the time. 6 Secret Service agents have since been disciplined, suspended. Their names have not been made public, but we do know that none of them were part of the team that was on stage with Trump when it all went down. Still, the buck has to stop somewhere, and it did. 10 days after the shooting, then Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, she resigned. President Trump appointed Sean Curran, who led detail agent, the lead detail agent at the time, to take her place. So where does that leave us now, a year later, with Donald Trump in the White House? Well, according to the president, he's made peace with what happened, at least publicly. He said, I was satisfied in terms of the bigger plot. You heard him say that at the end. He said, I have great confidence in these people. I know the people. They're very talented, very capable, but they had a bad day. Wow. I don't know that I could have that attitude toward a group that potentially cost me my life. They had a bad day. A bad day for the Secret Service detail protecting the president is not acceptable. You can't have a bad day. I know we all have bad days. But that could have been a very dark day for our nation. I think the president's being generous, don't you? Maybe more generous than most people would be in his shoes, but this is Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, the man has a strange ability to forgive and to move on issues that you would never think that he would. Now, if I ask some of his closest advisors, they'll probably tell a different story. Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, was there that day. And in a podcast interview earlier this week, she didn't sugarcoat it. She said, you think the worst. As a human, you can't think otherwise. And when he stood up, I thought, oh my gosh. She says the whole team believes it was divine intervention that saved his life, and maybe it was. Certainly Trump has given God the credit that God saved his life, that God spared him. Because when you're talking about a quarter of an inch, that's not luck. That's nothing short of a miracle. God had to have had his hand in that. Now Democrats and liberals, they make fun of us when we say that. They kind of look at us in a funny way when people like me say that God spared him for a reason. God spared him to be the leader of our country. But I believe it. And what's most remarkable is how little we still know about the shooter's motive. Despite investigations from the FBI, the Secret Service, Congress, the why remains elusive unless I've just missed it. Was it political? Did this young man have something personal against Donald Trump? I mean, he's 20 years old. Was he mentally ill? We just don't know. The lack of closure is a bit unnerving, not just for Trump, but for the country. Now, maybe they know and they're not telling us, and that's quite possible. But here's the kicker. Sunday marks the one-year anniversary. It's the closest a U.S. president has come to being assassinated since Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981. And yet the national conversation around it has been strangely quiet. Maybe it's because Trump survived. Maybe it's because politics is so tribal now that even an attempted assassination isn't enough to unify people. Or maybe it's just because we're all so numb from the constant chaos of the last few years that for whatever reason, we can't afford to look away. Look, I'm not saying that you have to like Donald Trump. You don't. That's your right as an American. But the fact that someone tried to kill a former and now current president in broad daylight at a public rally with a crowd full of families and kids, that should concern you. That should wake you up. Joey Hudson here. America is facing a health crisis, and the answer isn't more meds. I lost over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan without Ozempic or any weight loss shots. Don't settle for a lifetime of medication. GLP-1 injections like Ozempic help some people lose weight, but they come with side effects, high cost, and most gain it back when they stop. At PhD Weight Loss, we reveal Big Pharma's big secret. Your body already makes GLP-1, the appetite-fighting hormone. Our program helps your body make it naturally so you'll drop the pounds faster. With the PhD method, no side effects, no long-term risk, no rebound weight gain, just natural, lasting results, all without hunger or cravings. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. Discover your body's true potential without a shot. It's free and gives you the keys to your personalized plan. Do like I did and don't trade your health for a quick fix. Call now at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com. Things are getting a little messy personally for Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. His wife, Texas State Senator Angela Paxton, announced yesterday that she is filing for divorce from her husband, citing biblical grounds and a desire to protect her family in light of recent discoveries. In a social media post, the state senator said, "I believe marriage is a sacred covenant and have earnestly pursued reconciliation. But in light of recent discoveries, I do not believe that it honors God or is loving to myself, my children, or kin to remain in the marriage." They've been married for 38 years. Ken Paxton, a longtime Trump ally, currently challenging Senator John Cornyn in what is expected to be a contentious GOP primary for the U.S. Senate in Texas. This can't be good news for him in a lot of different ways. First and foremost, personally, to have your family divided, but particularly going into a political year like this. The divorce announcement comes just as that race begins to heat up. Ken Paxton, he's been a central figure in Texas Republican politics since he won the Attorney General's office in 2014. He was impeached, you may remember, by the Texas House in 2023 on corruption allegations, including claims tied to an extramarital affair, which may be part of what this divorce is. But he was acquitted by the state Senate, where Angela Paxton recused herself from voting. In his own statement yesterday, Attorney General Paxton acknowledged the divorce and alluded to the pressure his family has faced. He said, after facing the pressures of countless political attacks and public scrutiny, Angela and I have decided to start a new chapter in our lives. I remain committed to supporting our amazing children and grandchildren. I ask for your prayers and privacy at this time. Angela Paxton currently holds the North Texas State Senate seat that her soon-to-be ex-husband once held prior to becoming an attorney general. Represents suburbs of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, let me ask you a question here, because at one time, and this kind of dates me, it kind of gives me a way of how long I've been involved in politics. At one time, a divorce even prior to a campaign, but particularly in the middle of a campaign, was a death sentence. Does this affect Ken Paxton's potential challenge to John Cornyn? Would you vote for someone in this situation? Now, Ken Paxton was appeared to be a rising star in the political party. What does this do to his campaign, his challenge to unseat an incumbent senator like John Cornyn? President Trump has not weighed in on the race. I would suspect that Trump will probably support Cornyn, but who knows? John Cornyn has done some things that Donald Trump hasn't liked. Now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune and the National Republican Senatorial Committee, many would say are part of the establishment wing of the GOP, are already rallying around John Cornyn. They've endorsed the longtime incumbent. In a blistering statement, the NRSC Communications Director, Joanna Rodriguez, referenced the Paxton's divorce, saying, "What Ken Paxton has put his family through is truly repulsive and disgusting. No one should have to endure what Senator Paxton has, and we pray for her as she chooses to stand up for herself and her family during this difficult time." Again, the divorce has to bring new scrutiny to Ken Paxton's political future as he attempts to mount this serious challenge against a very entrenched Republican. We'll see. I'd love to get your comments. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to mypillow.com and you place your order for the My Slippers or some of the Percale sheets that are just some great buys. Just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast listener specials, and when you go to check out, use promo code Joey. You'll get the biggest savings possible, and I promise you, you'll love the products. If you don't, send them back. Michael and Dale guarantees every single thing. So, mypillow.com, promo code Joey. Leave me a message, though. I'd like to get your feedback on this story out of Texas with Ken Paxton. The Department of Education has revoked a rule that allowed illegal immigrants to access taxpayer funds for technical and career schools, according to the Daily Caller. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said in a statement, post-secondary education programs funded by the federal government should benefit American citizens, not illegal aliens. Under President Trump's leadership, hardworking American taxpayers will no longer foot the bill for illegal aliens to participate in our career, technical, or adult education programs or activities. She added the department will ensure that taxpayer funds are reserved for citizens and individuals who have entered our country through legal means who meet federal eligibility criteria. Now, a previous executive order from President Trump ended taxpayer subsidies for illegal immigrants. The rule was originally enacted by then-President Bill Clinton back in 1997, following the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act, a 1996 law which barred illegal immigrants from receiving health benefits. Clinton said post-secondary programs should be exempt from the rule. But President Trump's Department of Education disagrees, claiming that Clinton mischaracterized the law by creating artificial distinctions between federal benefit programs based upon the method of assistance, according to the Daily Caller. The Education Department will begin enforcing the rule next month. And speaking of craziness, a federal judge yesterday barred the Trump administration from enforcing the president's executive order limiting birthright citizenship, coming weeks after the Supreme Court restricted the capacity of judges to issue nationwide injunctions. I mean, I thought we had this cleared up. I thought the Supreme Court had sent a very clear message to these lower court district judges: do not interfere with the president's executive orders. District Judge Joseph LaPlante of the U.S. District Court of the District of New Hampshire, surprise, surprise, announced his decision after an hour-long hearing and said a written order will follow. The order will include a 7-day stay to allow for appeal, he said. He said in court, that's irreparable harm, citizenship alone. It is the greatest privilege that exists in the world. And I'll agree with you there, Judge. That's why it should not be so easy and should not be protected by people who have entered our country illegally. Send them back home, let them start over the right way. President Trump issued this executive order ending automatic birthright citizenship to individuals born in the U.S. to parents who are illegal immigrants. Multiple federal judges have issued injunctions against the order since it was issued, but the Supreme Court invalidated those previous court orders by ruling that lower courts cannot issue sweeping orders that block orders nationwide. Judge LaPlante addressed the Supreme Court's order, saying in the July 10th hearing that previously he was the judge who wasn't comfortable with issuing a nationwide injunction and that class action is different. He noted that his interpretation of the Supreme Court ruling suggested that class action is a better option. I don't know. I hope that the Supreme Court steps back in and clarifies this. At issue, of course, is the Constitution's 14th Amendment, which states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. We all know that a lot of people, a lot of pregnant women come into the country, they're on American soil to have their babies so that they'll be American citizens. They take advantage of the situation. This particular ruling is in response to a suit brought by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. I mean, look, I don't know how the ACLU is able to fund the constant barrage of lawsuits that they do against the president. They've argued that the executive order violates the Constitution's 14th Amendment and runs afoul of decades of jurisprudence over how to handle birthright citizenship. Lawyers for the Trump administration have argued that under that text, the United States can deny citizenship to children born of illegal immigrant women because of the line of subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The government lawyers said in court papers filed earlier this year, who were arguing on Trump's behalf, that prior misimpressions of the citizenship clause have created a perverse incentive for illegal immigration that has negatively impacted this country's sovereignty, national security, and economic stability. Meaning, again, women who come into the country illegally for the primary reason to give birth. The Trump administration and the president himself had argued that the 14th Amendment citizenship clause pertained to former black slaves soon after the Civil War when the amendment was ratified. 30 years later, Wong Kim Ark, a man who born in the United States to Chinese parents, was refused re-entry to the country after traveling overseas. His suit led to the Supreme Court ruling that the amendment gives citizenship to anyone in the United States no matter their parents' legal status. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of a pregnant woman, two parents, and their infants. It's among numerous cases challenging President Trump's order denying citizenship, one of the first executive orders that he signed upon re-entering the White House. President Donald Trump was not a happy camper learning about a bill that Democrat Senators Cory Booker and Alex Padilla are introducing that would require CBP and ICE officers to have legible IDs and not wear face masks, suggesting that they hate our country. Now, the bill introduced by these two senators, called the Visible Act, aims to address the lack of visible identification and uniform standards for immigration enforcement officers to enhance public trust in law enforcement. President Trump praised CBP and ICE officers. He called them great patriots, and he expressed concern that exposing them due to statements made by Democrats could put them in great danger. And he has a point. The president accused Democrats of becoming somewhat deranged, Mr. President, they're a lot deranged, and suggested that wealthy individuals on the left may be funding rioters targeting federal law enforcement officers, which I suggest that I agree, I think they are. He also condemned the ambush in Alvarado, Texas, where rioters targeted ICE officers, attributing the incident to very stupid people on the left who are funding such attacks. They're more than stupid. They're just mean people. They don't like our country. Now, the irony of this is the fact that these are the same Democrats. These are the ones who wanted to require you and me to wear a mask during COVID. You remember this? They were very high on wearing masks, and actually still are. Think about this and look around. It's still not unusual to see someone walking around with a Biden-Harris T-shirt on, or a Black Lives Matter T-shirt, or one of these leftist organizations, so that you kind of know who they support, and they're wearing a mask still. I still see them around town. You see them at campus protests. These radical leftists creating chaos, protesting, for example, the U.S.'s support of Israel. I mean, just watch some of those videos, watch some of those news reports, and you'll see a lot of those kids with masks on. Now, you tell me, what's behind this whole idea of these Democrat senators not wanting ICE agents to wear a mask? But yet it's okay for their protesters. It's okay for people who torch cars. It's okay for people who damage buildings, public squares, who are protesting. It's okay for them to wear a mask. Wow. Meanwhile, as the big, beautiful bill passed last week with some major new funding for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, the idea is to increase hiring to ramp up CBP and ICE agents. You may recall that back during the campaign, the president pledged to hire 10,000 new agents. Well, Politico wrote yesterday, and you have to kind of take what Politico writes with a grain of salt, but they typically have things like this pretty close. And I hadn't thought about it, but it makes sense. It may take more money to get this accomplished. Now, Politico Nightly last night wrote, border security has a big winner when Congress passed the big, beautiful bill, which authorized about $150 billion in new spending to assist President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration. That includes money to recruit and hire 3,000 Border Patrol agents and 5,000 Customs and Border Protection officers. Two law enforcement agencies that have historically been on the front lines of the U.S. border fight. Politico says, but that doesn't mean that either agency will have more boots on the ground. And here's their explanation. Both CBP, whose officers work at the nation's 328 ports of entry, and the Border Patrol have struggled to hire and retain personnel, and both face huge increases in expected retirements over the next 3 years. The problem is serious enough, they say, that both agencies won't see much, if any, net gain in personnel out of what is otherwise an unprecedented package of border security spending. So basically, their theory is that, yes, there's going to be more money, there's going to be more agents hired, but it's going to be tough for these two agencies to maintain their level of agents now, simply because, according to their model and the information they're getting from the agencies, there's going to be a lot of retirements. People are coming of retirement age very quickly in those agencies, and they're probably not going to have a net gain. They gave as an example, CBP has projected a 400% increase in retirements in 2028, and its own models have shown a need for 5,850 more officers to have a net gain. And this is coming from the National Treasury Employees Union. The union's president, Doreen Greenwald, said in a statement to Politico Nightly that she strongly supports the decision to fund 5,000 positions along with retention bonuses, but that Congress still needs to provide adequate annual funding to maintain hiring and allow the agency to backfill those forthcoming vacancies as quickly as possible. They go on to say that Border Patrol and CBP have in recent years faced some of the same issues in recruitment that other law enforcement agencies have encountered. And I know this to be a fact. I mean, I've talked with local law enforcement. Look, just about every sheriff's office in the upstate has been recruiting for deputies for a number of years. They're having a hard time keeping up, filling the vacancies. And it's harder, according to Politico, it's harder to find Americans who have the physical fitness and the other attributes required for this type of work, who don't prefer jobs that are generally more lucrative in the private sector. The Border Patrol in particular, they give as an example, has the additional challenge of finding people willing to do this very difficult job in remote outposts of, like, the southern part of Texas, southern part of Arizona. Politico says just hiring, screening, and training new agents can take a year, and many people don't want to spend years in a desolate place where their spouse can't also find a job. So money, if you believe this article, and I do think that they raise some concerns, the fact that we are probably going to have the money to hire these agents may not initially solve the problem. of being able to recruit enough people to fill these vacancies that are about to start happening. If, in fact, this union's information is correct, and we're going to see a lot of retirements in the next few years. They talk about places like San Diego, which is the busiest sector in the nation for apprehensions. They talk about the high cost of living is just another challenge of recruiting agents in that area. Evidently, you just can't afford to live in San Diego at the salaries that are offered to CBP and ICE agents. The acting chief patrol agent of the San Diego sector, Jeffrey Stalnaker, was quoted by Politico saying that he didn't yet know the details of the big, beautiful bill, but welcomed any new agents or funding for enforcement as well as retention. He said San Diego could use more personnel. We could also use additional infrastructure as well as additional technology to help detect anyone crossing the border illegally. Again, President Donald Trump is very aware of this. He made the promise a number of times during the campaign to get 10,000 additional boots on the ground. We'll see how that works out with the funding and with the recruitment efforts, and hopefully there are enough patriots out there who want to do what's best for our country, who will step up and apply for these jobs and get the job done. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On our guest line today, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope everybody out there had a wonderful Independence Day. I mean, the weather was beautiful, and everybody seemed to get in the spirit. And I love when you see everybody's flags flying and their red, white, and blue banners are posted up on their house. It gives you a great sense of American pride.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just a great day. And, hey, look, and kicking off, a special year for our country, too, as we head towards next year and the big celebration.
We have so much planned. The 250th celebration. There's, Palmetto. I was down for Carolina Day. I was in Charleston, and they're planning a really big celebration next year because of the 250th anniversary, and there are groups all around the state, so there's going to be lots of fun to be had.
Yep, for sure. What a horrible story, though, out of Texas from last weekend as we've watched the search and rescue in the areas devastated by the flooding. You and Governor McMaster have sent a team from South Carolina to help out. Talk with us about that.
Yes, sending some canine cadaver dogs down, and I think it really should make everybody stop and pause and realize how blessed we are. When my mother, my mother's 96, and she always says, when you have your health and when your family's well, you have everything, because money doesn't bring back the ones you love. And she's so right. And sometimes, you see that, and I at least know for me, it jolts me into reality to say, most of the things we worry about and we squabble about as a society really don't mean anything.
Yeah.
And it's the loved ones and the friends around us. And when you can wake up every day and know that your children are safe, and that's why it was so important what President Trump is doing, Joey. I mean, because protecting protecting Americans, protecting our young people, making sure fentanyl's not coming across the border. These are the things we need to be grateful for. And yeah, it was such a tragedy. And my prayers go out to the family who lost children.
I mean, it's just unimaginable to send your child to summer camp, a time of fun and joy, and for something like this to happen. It's just I can't imagine it.
I know. And and the reports of the water rising so fast, 25, 30 feet in 45 minutes, you say it, but I think when you see some of the pictures of where the water got to within the trees, and you think in 45 minutes, that much water just rose that high.
Yeah.
It just shows you the power of Mother Nature, and how we we have got to make sure that as hurricane season comes, and it started, and we had a pretty good tropical storm down at our coast over 4th of July weekend. This is a good time for everybody to take note. South Carolina EMD does a great job of trying to give routes if a hurricane is coming for everybody that lives at the coast. It gives you tips on what you should start preparing for, right? Making sure you have batteries for your flashlights if power goes out, making sure you have a radio with batteries, making sure that, for people, especially our seniors who are on medication, to make sure you, kind of have that in one place in a box, so that if bad weather suddenly sneaks up on us, that you are ready to go and ready to get to safety.
Yep. And there's going to be a lot of discussion in Texas, of course, about what could have been. I mean, unfortunately, I want them to take care of the families and support them right now, but there's a lot of discussion about why this happened, and could there not have been a better early warning system? Evidently, Kerr, Texas had talked about employing some sirens, but the cost was going to be too much, and they opted not to do it. A neighboring town had installed an early warning device, and they had no fatalities. So there's going to be a lot of discussion about what maybe they can do to prevent this from happening in the future.
I think you're right. And I think from every tragedy that comes out, anything like this, we should always learn from it. And everybody, across the country should take note, right? Yep. And start reevaluating. So, again, yes, take care of the families first and foremost. But, as government, sometimes we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And while you're comforting the families,
yep,
you need to do an assessment of how you make sure that this never happens again. And, what can be cut so that some of these essential things can get the funding that they need.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, we've been talking about that a lot, Joey. And, we've been calling it Doge now. It's like I keep saying, now it has a sexy word. But, looking at, what is waste and what is frivolous and what is a necessity. And, tax dollars should always go to protecting its citizens first and foremost. So, we've seen it at a federal level. I believe we need to have it at a state level. And I think it needs to go right down to the local levels. Every household and every business knows that they have to do it. And government should have to do it too.
Yep, exactly. So California Governor Gavin Newsom was in South Carolina yesterday. Did you greet him somewhere? Did you meet him in one of his stops?
Yeah, no, I didn't. And I was wondering, Joey, if you were going to try to ask him the tough questions when he came up to Oconee County yesterday. I saw he was heading in that direction. My hope is that he looked around South Carolina and saw how a state should be run, and taken some of the good things the governor and I have done, some good nuggets of information back to California to try to fix his state, with rising crime and rising gas prices and men playing in women's sports and, no water in his fire hydrants. I think he has a lot to do and fix and take care of in California. But hey, if he could come here to South Carolina and we could show him how it's done, we're happy to be good neighbors.
Yep, Matt, hopefully some of our common sense rubbed off on him. One final thing before I let you go today. You got an event coming up July 14th. You want to give us a little glimpse of what it might be about?
Well, we got a big announcement July 14 at Judson Mill in Greenville. Everybody is welcome. I mean, we're asking people to RSVP, and it's filling up really fast because we want to make sure we have space for everybody. So, you're gonna have to come to see what the big announcement is. But we're very excited.
The suspense, this is killing me. So, all right, well, I guess we can talk about that next week then. But July the 14th at Judson, and what a great job they've done with that facility for sure. So,
yeah.
Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evatt, always a pleasure. Have a good one.
Thanks, Joey. You too. Have a great day, everybody. If you're getting on the lake, be safe this weekend.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.